Imagine a vast, open ocean, silent, endless, and deceptively calm. Beneath the surface, a predator lurks, an unseen force that moves with deadly precision. Above, a behemoth of steel and firepower dominates the waves, its cannons locked onto a distant target. Then, boom! A thunderous explosion shatters the silence as fire and steel rip through the air. For centuries, naval warfare has been a brutal, unforgiving battleground, where the most destructive and sophisticated weapons ever devised by man have decided the fate of empires. But which of these weapons were the most lethal? Which ones changed the very nature of war? From the massive battleship guns that could obliterate cities to the stealthy torpedoes that sank entire fleets? From the rise of aircraft carriers that extended war beyond the horizon to the nuclear warheads that could turn the sea into an inferno? This is the story of the deadliest naval weapons ever used in war. Let's dive deep into the world of floating. Fortresses, underwater assassins, and unstoppable doomsday machines that have ruled the high seas. Battleship cannons, the floating artillery of death before the age of nuclear submarines and supersonic missiles, the battleship was the king of the sea, and its greatest weapon was its artillery. These floating giants carried massive naval guns, capable of launching explosive shells the size of small cars over distances of 20 to 30 miles. These were not just weapons, they were city-leveling behemoths. Take the Japanese Yamato-class battleships, the largest ever built. Armed with 18.1-inch naval guns, the Yamato and its sister ship, Musashi, could fire 3,200-pound shells, each round heavier than a small car, at speeds of Mach 2. To put that in perspective, these shells could penetrate over 30 inches of steel armor, reducing enemy warships to floating wreckage. The sheer force of these projectiles created massive shockwaves, turning steel into molten debris and ripping apart entire decks. The USS Iowa-class battleships, used by the U.S. Navy, weren't far behind. Their 16-inch Mark 7 guns could launch 2,700-pound shells at speeds over 1,800 mph, striking targets up to 24 miles away. During World War II and the Korean War, these guns bombarded enemy positions, leveling cities, fortifications, and entire naval fleets. The terrifying part? These shells didn't just explode on impact. They penetrated deep into their targets, detonating with the force of a small tactical nuke. But for all their power, battleships had a weakness. They were slow, massive, and highly vulnerable to a new type of weapon, one that didn't attack from the surface, but from below. Torpedoes. The silent killers, beneath the waves. Unlike the thunderous roar of battleship guns, torpedoes strike with stealth and precision. These underwater missiles revolutionized naval warfare, allowing small submarines to sink warships many times their size. During World War I, German U-boats became the deadliest threat in the Atlantic, using torpedoes to sink thousands of Allied vessels. By World War II, this weapon had become even deadlier. The Battle of the Atlantic saw entire convoys of ships disappearing beneath the waves, victims of the silent hunters beneath the surface. One of the most devastating torpedo strikes in history was the sinking of the Bismarck, Germany's most feared battleship. The Royal Navy chased the Bismarck across the Atlantic, firing everything they had. But in the end, one single torpedo changed everything. A lucky hit jammed its rudder, rendering it unable to maneuver. This allowed the British fleet to surround and destroy the mighty warship, proving that even the largest battleships were vulnerable to torpedoes. And then came the nuclear torpedo, the ultimate doomsday weapon. The Soviet Union, during the Cold War, developed the T-5 nuclear torpedo, designed to annihilate entire enemy fleets with a single strike. This weapon didn't need direct hits. Its massive underwater explosion created shockwaves capable of tearing apart warships from miles away. Just imagine an entire armada of ships suddenly obliterated in a mushroom cloud of fire and water. But while torpedoes brought stealth and precision, nothing could match the unparalleled dominance of what came next. Aircraft carriers, floating air bases of destruction. If battleships ruled the seas in the early 20th century, aircraft carriers changed the game entirely. Instead of relying on massive cannons, these floating fortresses carried entire squadrons of bombers and fighter planes, capable of striking targets hundreds of miles away. One of the most shocking examples of their power was Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched 353 aircraft from 6 aircraft carriers, striking the U.S. Pacific Fleet in mere hours. In that single attack, battleships that had once been the pride of the Navy, like the USS Arizona and USS Oklahoma, were sunk, burning, and shattered beyond repair. The war had changed forever. Aircraft, not battleships, would now decide the fate of battles. The Battle of Midway was another turning point. The U.S. Navy, using superior intelligence and tactics, destroyed 4 Japanese aircraft carriers in a single battle. In just a few minutes, the entire course of the Pacific War shifted in America's favor. These massive warships were now the centerpiece of naval power, carrying jet fighters, bombers, and even nuclear-capable aircraft. Modern aircraft carriers, like the Nimitz-class and Ford-class supercarriers, are floating cities of destruction. Powered by nuclear reactors, they can operate for decades without refueling and carry over 75 aircraft, capable of striking targets across continents. These carriers have played a dominant role in every major naval conflict from the Cold War to the present day. But as deadly as these floating air bases are, they are not invincible. A new generation of weapons has emerged, one that can destroy an aircraft carrier with a single strike. Missiles, the ultimate aircraft carrier. Killers for decades, aircraft carriers have dominated the seas, acting as floating air bases capable of launching devastating attacks from hundreds of miles away. But what happens when one missile can wipe out an entire carrier in seconds? Welcome to the age of hypersonic and ballistic anti-ship missiles, the game-changers in naval warfare. Let's talk about the Chinese DF-21D, also known as the carrier killer. This missile is no ordinary weapon. It's the first ballistic missile ever designed to sink an aircraft carrier. It launches from land, travels at over 10 times the speed of sound, and then re-enters the atmosphere, plunging down toward its target at hypersonic velocity. Traditional missile defenses can't react fast enough to stop it. In a real conflict, a single direct hit from a DF-21D could turn a 100,000-ton supercarrier into a burning wreck in minutes. But China didn't stop there. They developed an even deadlier version, the DF-26, nicknamed the Guam Express, because it has the range to hit U.S. military bases in the Pacific. This missile doesn't just destroy carriers, it forces them to stay far away from the battlefield, effectively neutralizing their advantage. And then there's Russia's Zircon missile, a hypersonic ship-destroying monster that travels at over Mach 9, 6,900 miles. Unlike traditional cruise missiles, which can be intercepted, the Zircon moves so fast that it generates a plasma cloud around itself, making it nearly invisible to radar. This means that by the time a target even detects it, it's already too late. If that wasn't terrifying enough, the U.S. has its own deadly response, the SM-6 and LRASM, long-range anti-ship missile. The LRASM is an AI-guided stealth missile that hunts its prey on its own. It can navigate around enemy defenses, evade radars, and even change its attack route mid-flight to strike where it hurts the most. This means that even the most advanced warships in the world are now under constant threat from smart missiles that think like a hunter. But what if the war isn't fought on the surface? What if the real battlefield is beneath the waves, where unseen killers lurk in the abyss? Nuclear submarines. The invisible executioners. Imagine this. You're on a massive aircraft carrier, surrounded by a fleet of destroyers and battleships, all equipped with the most advanced radar and defense systems ever built. You feel safe, until out of nowhere, a torpedo strikes. Explosions rip through the hull, the ship begins to list, panic spreads, and then, before anyone can react, another explosion. And another. The attack came from below, from a silent hunter lurking hundreds of meters beneath the waves, a nuclear-powered submarine, one of the deadliest machines ever created. Unlike traditional warships, submarines don't fight with brute force. They fight with stealth, precision, and patience. These undersea assassins can remain submerged for months, moving, undetected beneath enemy fleets, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when they do, the result is often catastrophic. One of the most famous examples is the sinking of the General Belgrano during the Falklands War in 1982. The British nuclear submarine HMS Conqueror stalked the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano, for hours before finally launching 2 torpedoes. The result? 323 sailors killed, the ship sunk in minutes, and Argentina's entire navy forced to retreat for the rest of the war. One submarine single-handedly changed the course of the conflict. But that's just conventional warfare. What happens when submarines carry nuclear weapons? Meet the Russian Typhoon class, the largest submarines ever built. These Cold War-era behemoths can fire intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, from beneath the ocean. Each one can carry up to 20 nuclear warheads, each capable of destroying an entire city. And then, there's the Poseidon torpedo, Russia's apocalyptic doomsday weapon. Unlike traditional torpedoes, Poseidon is a fully autonomous underwater drone, armed with a nuclear warhead. Once launched, it travels thousands of miles underwater, evading defenses, before detonating its nuclear payload near enemy coastlines. The result? A radioactive tsunami over 500 feet high, wiping out entire naval bases, coastal cities, and infrastructure. But it's not just Russia. The US has its own arsenal of nuclear submarines. The Ohio-class subs carry Trident II missiles, capable of launching nuclear strikes from anywhere in the world. These submarines are often called boomers, because if a nuclear war ever broke out, these stealthy monsters would ensure total annihilation. And now, China is rapidly expanding its submarine fleet, developing new nuclear-powered attack subs, capable of launching ballistic missiles, making the underwater battlefield more dangerous than ever before. The future of naval warfare, autonomous warships and AI drones. We've talked about battleships, torpedoes, aircraft carriers, hypersonic missiles, and nuclear submarines, but the most terrifying weapons of the future may not even need humans to operate them. Enter autonomous warships and AI-powered naval drones. These aren't just concepts. They are already being built. The U.S. Navy's Sea Hunter is an AI-controlled warship designed to patrol the seas without a crew. It can track enemy submarines, launch torpedoes, and conduct electronic warfare, all while operating completely autonomously. China is also developing AI-controlled drone subs, which can swarm enemy fleets like a pack of sharks, overwhelming defenses before they even know what hit them. These AI war machines are designed to think, adapt, and attack on their own. No human decision-making needed. And then there's railguns and laser weapons, new technologies that fire projectiles at hypersonic speeds or shoot down incoming missiles with beams of light. The US has already tested ship-mounted laser defense systems, capable of melting enemy drones and missiles in mid-air. The naval battlefield is evolving, becoming faster, more stealth-based, and increasingly autonomous. The days of massive warships firing cannonballs are long gone. Now, war at sea is a battle of AI, hypersonic speed, and nuclear deterrence. But the question remains, with weapons this powerful, could the next great naval war be humanity's last? Naval warfare in the 21st century. A battle of technology and stealth. The oceans have always been a battleground. But today, warfare at sea has evolved into a game of stealth, speed, and technological dominance. The most dangerous naval weapons are no longer just big guns and heavy armor. They are smart missiles, AI-controlled warships, and weapons so powerful that a single strike can change the course of a war. Let's look at some of the deadliest naval weapons ever used in war and how they shaped military history. The kamikaze strikes. The human torpedoes of World War I, one of the most terrifying naval weapons ever deployed, wasn't a missile or a torpedo. It was a man. During World War II, as the war in the Pacific reached its final stages, Japan introduced a desperate and deadly tactic, the kamikaze. These were suicide pilots, flying aircraft loaded with explosives, diving straight into enemy warships with no intention of returning. The attacks were devastating. On October 25, 1944, during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the U.S. Navy witnessed the full horror of kamikaze strikes. One of the first victims was the USS St. Lo, an escort carrier that was hit by a kamikaze plane. The result? A massive explosion, fires breaking out across the deck, and within an hour, the ship was gone. Over 100 sailors lost their lives. Kamikaze strikes sank over 50 Allied ships and damaged hundreds more. They were unstoppable, forcing the U.S. to create new defenses, including anti-aircraft firepower and fighter patrols. But the damage had been done. The kamikazes had rewritten the rules of naval warfare. Sometimes the deadliest weapon is one willing to destroy itself. The sinking of the Bismarck. The end of a giant. If there was ever a symbol of raw naval power, it was the German battleship Bismarck. During World War II, the Bismarck was the most feared warship in the Atlantic. It was bigger, stronger, and more heavily armed than almost anything the British Navy could throw at it. When the Bismarck was spotted in May 1941, the British Royal Navy launched an all-out hunt. Dozens of ships, aircraft, and submarines were deployed to track and destroy it. And then, in an unexpected twist, a single airplane carrying a torpedo changed history. A British Fairey Swordfish biplane, an outdated, slow-moving aircraft, launched a torpedo that struck the Bismarck's rudder. The battleship lost control, unable to maneuver. It was now a sitting duck. The next day, the British Navy unleashed everything it had, firing hundreds of shells, torpedoes, and bombs. The once mighty Bismarck was reduced to a burning wreck. The lesson? No warship is truly invincible. The Bismarck was one of the most powerful battleships ever built, but all it took was one lucky torpedo strike to seal its fate. The Falklands War. The Exocet missile changes everything. Fast forward to 1982, and we see another game-changing moment in naval warfare. This time, the battlefield was the South Atlantic, during the Falklands War between the United Kingdom and Argentina. At the heart of this war was a new kind of naval weapon, the Exocet missile. This wasn't a massive battleship or a heavy torpedo. It was a small, intelligent missile designed to fly low over the water, avoiding radar detection, before striking its target with pinpoint accuracy. On May 4, 1982, an Argentine aircraft launched an Exocet missile at the British destroyer HMS Sheffield. The ship's radar never saw it coming. Within seconds, the missile struck, igniting massive fires, and within days the Sheffield sank to the ocean floor. This event shocked the world. It proved that small, fast, smart missiles could destroy billion-dollar warships. After the Falklands War, every navy on the planet rushed to develop their own anti-ship missiles, leading to the deadly weapons we see today: the Harpoon, the Tomahawk, the YJ-18, and the deadly Russian Kaliber, the most powerful naval weapon ever. Nuclear-tipped submarine missiles. But all of these weapons, battleships, torpedoes, kamikazes, and missiles, pale in comparison to the deadliest naval weapon ever created, the nuclear missile. During the Cold War, the US and Soviet Union built fleets of submarines armed with nuclear warheads. These weren't ordinary submarines. They were designed to survive a nuclear apocalypse and launch doomsday weapons from beneath the ocean. Today, Ohio-class submarines, US, Borei-class subs, Russia, and Jin-class subs, China, can carry ballistic missiles loaded with nuclear warheads. If a nuclear war ever broke out, these submarines could launch their missiles from anywhere in the world, striking enemy cities with unstoppable force. Some experts believe that nuclear-armed submarines are the reason World War III has never happened. They act as a deterrent, a threat so powerful that no country dares to attack another, knowing that the retaliation would be instant and total. The future of naval warfare. Where are we headed? The weapons of the past were mighty battleships, giant fleets, and massive aircraft carriers. But the weapons of the future? They will be invisible, AI-controlled, and hypersonic, AI-powered warships. The US and China are developing fully autonomous warships capable of patrolling the seas, engaging enemies, and launching attacks without a single human on board. Stealth submarines. The latest nuclear submarines, like the US Columbia class and China's Type 096, are so silent that they can move undetected across the ocean floor. Hypersonic missiles. The new generation of missiles will travel at over 15,000 mph, making them impossible to intercept. Underwater drone swarms. The future of naval combat may not even involve human ships at all. AI-powered drone subs will be able to hunt, destroy, and defend without needing a crew. Final thought. Could the next naval war be humanity's last? With weapons this powerful, one has to ask, could the next great naval war be our last? The world has already seen how a single missile, a single torpedo, or a single submarine can sink entire fleets. But with today's nuclear weapons, AI-powered warships, and hypersonic missiles, a future naval conflict could be far deadlier than anything in history. So here's the question. Is naval warfare evolving into something we can no longer control? Will advanced AI and nuclear weapons prevent wars or make them more inevitable? Let me know what you think in the comments below.